Today we'll be looking at one of the most infamous collections of ships in Star Wars history, and I'm not feeling particularly charitable today. What is this thing, you might be asking? What is this thing? You better watch this video and find out. Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. As you can probably hear, thanks to all of your good vibes and powerful spirit energies, I'm mostly feeling better. Hopefully no voice cracks that I have throughout this video, but if I do have any, I'll make sure to cut them out and include them in a montage at the end. Anyway, we're combining a couple of series that we've been running on the channel for the past couple of months and continuing our look both at wacky and ugly Star Wars ships and the excellent source books of the West End Games era. Previously, we talked about how the Imperial source book and others like it defined many of the key aspects of the Star Wars expanded universe, which are really still foundational to how things work in Star Wars. Things like interdiction fields, the ISB, the rank structure of the Imperial military. That's why these books are so good. The one we'll be talking about today is somewhat unique. It's Krakens Threat Dossier, and what's interesting about it is that it's mostly covering several in-universe novels, specifically The Courtship of Princess Leia, The Black Fleet Crisis, and the Corellian trilogy. I just think that's really cool, and it's pretty unlikely that nowadays you'd have a single source book covering completely expanded universe events. Like, we're not even really getting Star Wars source books right now. I believe that's due to the weird state of the tabletop RPG, but I can't imagine getting, say, book which focused specifically on the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy or even the High Republic, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, aside from its focus on the three aforementioned conflicts, Kraken's Threat Dossier is also well known for its, well, interesting ship designs. And I gotta say, I'll be a little bit brutal here when talking about some of this. That's not to say Kraken's Threat Dossier is overall a bad book. I think it's got some pretty good lore in it, and some of the little stories are interesting as well. So don't write it off for those reasons. Let's start first with the section on the Courtship of Princess Leia, and there's actually not a whole lot that's too bad here. We already talked about the Hapen Battle Dragon. I think a lot of the lore we talked about would have actually been established, if not in the original novel, in this book. I mean, the illustration for Mon Ramonda is not very good, but it's not the end of the world. We also get, quite interestingly, the Star Home. This thing is massive compared to a Hapen Battle Dragon. It's about 2.5 kilometers long, and it's essentially a castle in spaceship form. I don't know if this is actually in the novel. I don't remember it, but it's certainly a pretty unique design. I don't mind it, actually. Of course, the Star Home, despite its size, is not really an offensive juggernaut. It's probably less well-armed than, say, the Hapen Battle Dragon, and of course without the interesting slide weapon technology. Things, however, really start to get pretty funky with the next section on the Black Fleet Crisis. We do get something I really like, a breakdown of how the New Republic government works, but when we get to the New Republic's new class of warships, things just get pretty ugly. I actually don't mind the Corona frigate. It looks like a beefed up Nebulon B combined with like a dreadnought. Pretty cool. But then we get to the Belarus class medium cruiser, and it's like, what is this supposed to be? The Belarus is meant to be a successor to the Lorinar strike cruiser, which of course looks nothing like this. I don't get the design language here, what this is really meant to look like. I don't know why it has a yo-yo at the end. If I were to guess, I think the illustrator is probably trying to incorporate this sort of scrap together look that the Alliance has in the episode 5 and 6, but the whole point of the new class modernization project, which produced this ship and others, is that these were meant to be new state-of-the-art warships. I don't get why it looks like this. That's all I can really say. Alright, next up we have a really weird one, the Republic class Star Destroyer. This one is really confusing because at this point they start throwing around Star Destroyer way too much. There's the Republic Star Destroyer, there's the Nebula Star Destroyer. The Nebula is also sometimes called the Defender class Star Destroyer. There's the Endurance class Star Destroyer, and all of these are sort of introduced at around the same time, and that's why at one point the Republic class Star Destroyer was almost retconned to be another name for the MC-80B. And I mean, the Republic class Star Destroyer looks, well, nothing like a Star Destroyer. It's meant to be this refinement of the ship type. It says specifically that it's got 1/5 the crew of an ISD, but 20% more firepower. But this is like the least menacing thing ever. It's like another case where the illustrator probably saw Rebel ships, specifically the Mon Calamari in this case, and tried to build something around this. Otherwise, there's no sort of Star Wars aesthetic here at all. Many of the medium ship types of the new class are pretty small and spindly, honestly, I actually really like the design of the Warrior gunship, but by the time we get to the Majestic heavy cruiser, again, things are getting a little bit weird. This one's not so bad. There are people that really love the design of the Majestic. There's a pretty cool version of it within Thrawn's Revenge, but the real ugly duckling of this book is probably the Defender class Star Destroyer, and as I mentioned, this is the same ship as the Nebula Star Destroyer, and it's actually a somewhat complex debate which started in this book, whether the Nebula and the Defender were meant to be the same ship type, whether the Nebula even existed as a ship type was up for debate for quite a while. There's even a Star Wars comic posted in the 2010s which has what looks like a Defender class. Then we have the Endurance, which, I mean, come on, who put the hangar up here? Like, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense from a logical level, whatever, put the hangar up there if you want, but I mean, this has got to be the ugliest ship in Star Wars history. I do like the fact that it looks like it's built off the same frame as the Defender or the Nebula. That was kind of the point with the new class ship, but I just thank baby Jesus that we somehow moved from these to the Endurance and the Nebula, which end up looking pretty cool. The Endurance specifically in the Black Fleet Crisis is the command ship of the 5th Fleet, the massive New Republic task force that's been created. You wouldn't catch my ass dead in that big-nosed thing, that's all I'm saying. I also find on the Evathan side the Type D fighter pretty funny because it's literally just like a fighter jet, but whatever. Unsurprisingly, the section on the Corellian trilogy doesn't have a whole lot in the way of capital ships, but we do get the Baccarin Star Destroyer, and again, this doesn't really look like a Star Destroyer. I guess the idea of the illustrator and maybe the author here was that Star Destroyer is simply a ship size classification, which to be fair is something that's sort of been suggested as well in other places, but practically, if something is going to be called a Star Destroyer in the main Star Wars lore, it's going to look like one. Like, no one calls a Providence a Star Destroyer, for example. No one calls a large Mon Calamari cruiser a Star Destroyer. So the fact that the Baccarin Star Destroyer looks like this is just a bit odd. I don't hate the design, but it looks more like a support ship as well. They also have a light cruiser, which kind of reminds me of like a Recusant almost having mated with a starfighter, a very large starfighter. But guys, that's really all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. And now if you ever hear somebody talking about the artwork of Kraken's Threat Dossier, especially talking about it in a disparaging sense, you will now be able to participate in that conversation. Which one of these ship designs do you think most misses the mark? And is there one that you actually really like? Let me know that and more down below.
Shit! I'm dying in this fucking country ass fucked up town. Shit flying in my mouth. The fuck, I can't see pollen.